and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a beer from Westbrook Brewing Company out of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. And the beer in question today is called Fluffer Nutter Shake. It's a milkshake IPA that clocks in at 7% ABV. This one brewed with peanut butter, marshmallow, and of course lactose. So yeah, when I saw this pop up on Tavour, I knew I was going to grab it. I've had quite a few of Westbrook's beers, all of which I've gotten from Tavour. This is no difference. And I mean, I love Fluffer Nutters. I used to eat them when I was a kid, though admittedly it's been quite a while. But I mean, this is a great flavor combination, I suspect, to make a milkshake into a milkshake IPA. So yeah, what I'm expecting is it's going to be liquid Fluffer Nutter. And you know, in a milkshake IPA format with that lactose addition, it's gonna have that sweetness required to make it kind of mimic the sandwich. So yeah, never seen one of these before. On the label, it's got kind of a cow on top, you know, kind of a clean design on the label. Not much else to talk about there. So we're gonna get it cracked. We've got our nice tall all-purpose glass. All right, get this poured right in. Been a while since I've had a milkshake IPA as well. All right, we'll stop it right there for the time being. Visually, this is a true golden yellow. Now, I called it a milkshake IPA. They did not, for the record, because of that lactose addition. Typically, if a brewer's going to call milkshake IPA, or call an IPA a milkshake, it's going to be those thicker kind of smoothie styles like you see with the sours, but I don't know what else to call this. They just called this an IPA, so maybe I should do the same, but it's Fluffer Nutter inspired with the lactose addition. So we'll leave it at that. Not going to you know, split hairs, but it looks very, very nice. It formed a nice, thick, rich, creamy head. Let's get over this for a sniff. Oh yeah. So that's an interesting aroma combination. You can really smell the hops on this. It's got a floral and citrus and a little bit of almost a resinous twinge on the nose, but you can very distinctly smell the peanut butter in it too. It's an interesting aroma combination that is not one I would ever expect to find, but nonetheless, that's what it smells like. It smells fantastic. It's quite pungent, so it's definitely leading with its IPA kind of profile first, that being the hops, and then of course I can get the peanut butter on the nose as well. Marshmallow is not really going to smell like much, but I'm expecting when we jump in this, because of that lactose addition, that it's going to be sweet enough to let the marshmallow and the peanut butter properly taste like they would in sandwich form. And yes, of course, this is an IPA, but I could not find out the specific hop bill that they used. So, I mean, I'm not sure in a beer like this it really matters all that much. We could probably do some guesswork, but nonetheless, it looks great. It smells great. The head has settled down a bit. Let's just jump right in and see what this is about. Oh, yeah. Okay, wow, yeah. That's an interesting flavor combination in a good way. So before we even get to that, let's talk about the body and the mouthfeel. This is a very full medium. It almost is encroaching on the light end of medium heavy. For a 7% IPA, it's got real presence. And yes, typically beers that have that lactose addition, for whatever reason, tend to be a bit weightier, tend to be a bit thicker. That is absolutely true here. The mouthfeel as well, it's got a lot more resistance than you would expect on a 7%. This is top tier for this ABV range in the beer style, guys. Absolutely great presence texturally. In terms of the flavor profile, so when you first swallow, you do get hit with the hops first. It's very much an earthy hop flavor and hop bittering that comes through with a slight resinous back and slight citrus back, but it's very much kind of rind oil. It leads like 90% earthy and like 5% slight resin and 5% sliced citrus rind citrus oil. So the flavor combination of the hops, even though on the nose it smells a lot more complex than that, is leaning very heavily into earthy bittering, which is, in my opinion, a smart hop selection to be the dominant hop flavor profile in a beer like this where you're adding lactose and adding marshmallow and peanut butter and want to mimic in an IPA a Fluffer Nutter sandwich. To that end, the peanut butter on this tastes very much more like roasted peanuts to me than peanut butter. If you were to kind of compare it to peanut butter, I would say think something like a natural peanut butter, like Smucker's natural peanut butter, whatever brand. Something that doesn't have added sugar like a lot of the big brands do. Skippy, Peter Pan, those peanut butters like that, they have a little bit of natural sweetness to them in the finished product because they do add some sugars. Not a lot, but they are in there. I personally like that. I was a Peter Pan guy for ages and switched to Skippy in the last couple of years. I mean, they're both very comparable, but if you compare those side by side with the natural peanut butter, it's immediately noticeable. Oh, this tastes different. It just tastes like, you know, actual ground peanuts. And that's the vibe I'm getting here. So I think they probably used a natural peanut butter. So it's got very much a natural roasted peanut vibe. And yeah, that lactose pops in, the marshmallow sweetness. It doesn't taste strongly of marshmallow, but it's enough that's in there that it pairs with that peanut, and it does put me in mind of the sandwich. Does it taste exactly like it? No, of course not. It's in a beer. It's in an IPA. But it tastes absolutely fantastic. I wasn't sure that it was a combination of flavors that was going to work in an IPA beer base, but their hop selection was really, really smart in this, and it's very, very nice. So I'm going to jump back in for a second sip, guys. Let everything re-intensify. Make sure I didn't miss any nuance, and we'll talk about the balance and the finish. Take two. Okay, on second sip, there's a bit more intense sweetness from that lactose, and the marshmallow and the peanut butter kind of vibe together a lot more strongly on second sip. And yes, there is thickness to this beer, so it does coat the palate and it does linger around for a while. We'll talk about that in detail when we get to the finish, but yeah, it's very nice. You definitely get the Fluffer Nutter vibe. It's just got bitters. It is an IPA. There are bitters in this. And typically, eating a Fluffer Nutter, you would not expect the bitter sensation. But they're inspired by the sandwich, but it's in an IPA base. So the fact that they kept true to the style, it's an IPA first, the peanut butter, the marshmallow, lactose is the bonus on the side. I personally really appreciate that. So for my money, really, really well done here. Anything else I picked out on second sip? Kind of other nuance? No, just that once you get to that second sip, if you're not waiting a long time between sips, it is definitely going to be a lot more prevalent with that sweetness and taste of the sandwich up front before the kind of bittering and other hop kind of dominant flavors pop through. Yeah, for IBU's perception to my palate, I would guess somewhere in the 35 to 45 range. It's not super heavily hopped, but it's not lightly hopped either. So yes, there are, aside from just dominant hop flavors that come through, there are hop bitters that come through. And that maybe to some people's palate is an interesting pairing, especially with this sweetness and these added ingredients, but I personally like it. It's an IPA first and foremost, and then they did something interesting with it. And what I think they did with it is really interesting. So for the balance on this, underlying malt bill, this one you get on the finish. It's very much a cereal and granola grainy-like kind of flavor profile. So kind of a classic clean underpinning that you might pick to pair with an IPA. It's quite nice there. But what it does is it lets these additives and the hops just float on top, and they're the star of the show. And really for me, it's almost equal parts hops being, you know, the star of the show for an IPA, and then these additives. And the balance on this, I think, is exceptional. The hops that they chose in particular were really smart, in my opinion. And the fact that neither is overriding each other, you get to enjoy all the aspects of an IPA that you know and love if you're an IPA drinker, but then you also get to enjoy the marshmallow, the peanut butter, and the lactose that sweetens it up. So you get the best of both worlds in the same beer, and I think it's awesome for that. In terms of the finish, this one is above average, but it's not quite as long as some, even though it's got more hop bittering than would be typical in an IPA that has lactose and other adjuncts added. It's not quite as long, maybe on the top end, but it is above average to be certain. Guys, for me, this is a very delicious beer. It's more or less what I was hoping it would be, just has a bit more hop presence, and personally, I love it for that. This is a really good one, a unique one. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, come up with my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Westbrook Brewing Company's Fluffer Nutter Shake, an IPA clocking in at 7% ABV. I called it a milkshake. They didn't, but you easily could. This one has peanut butter, marshmallow, and the lactose. So that lactose addition, it's in the spirit of a milkshake IPA. But nonetheless, really good beer. Westbrook, of course, based in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. So yeah, this one sounded awesome. When I saw it pop up on Tavour, I was really excited about it. And when I jumped in, had some pleasant surprises. Namely the fact that it led still. The IPA itself was the star of the show. Just the additives that they did with it were the added bonus. But it was still a true IPA at heart, including wonderful hop aroma and flavor and bitters, which is rare to find in an IPA that's got lactose in it. So in general, this beer did great across all of the categories. Just two on this one that did not get a perfect score. The first of those was the finish. So this beer was above average in terms of finish, certainly for an IPA with lactose in it, as there was quite a bit more bitters in this than you would typically find, but it still wasn't quite as long as some. That being said, it was impressive, and I really liked the balance between the lactose and the hop intensity, particularly on the bitter side, let alone just the flavors. It was really well struck and absolutely deserves high praise. The finish on this one, just not quite top tier, but longer than average. It does get a 7 out of 10. The second category that did not get a perfect score was the head and retention. Guys, this did form a nice, rich, thick, creamy head, and it stuck around the vast majority of the time, but it dissipated just a little bit quicker than I was hoping. Didn't miss the mark by much. I only took 1 point off. Head and retention gets a 9 out of 10. That does, of course, leave a perfect 10 out of 10 in the remaining 8 categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, appearance, balance, my subjective thoughts, and example of style. So the total score on Westbrook Brewing Company's Fluffer Nutter Shake is a 96 out of 100. Guys, very high score indeed, and well earned and well deserved. This one was really, really good. I've had quite a few IPAs over the years that, call them milkshake or don't. They have that lactose addition, but this was one of the most impressive to me, mostly because they stayed true to the base beer style itself first, with big hop aroma, big hop flavor, and bitters, and then the additives were the ancillary cherry on top. Absolutely worth your time. If you've never had one that's balanced quite like that, I think you're going to like it. I got mine from Tavour. Feel free to check and see if they drop it in again. And yeah, highly, highly recommend this beer, guys. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications by hitting that bell icon. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.